Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
I'm Gaynor.
I'm Office Bloke Aidan.
Okay, we are the three of us. If Patreon's your thing, check out the link below. We've got loads of stuff on there. Absolute loads of stuff. We just finished the quarterback.
We have.
Eight episodes, was it?
Yep.
And absolute superb. So head on down there. Starts at just $3 a month.
Yeah. All the way up to
support the
$5.
channel. Brilliant. Bit of American versus European suburbs and why US suburbs suck. Don't know. That's the title.
Cold.
Yeah.
Don't know what this is about. We've lived in both Europe and in America.
We have.
Both in the suburbs.
Yes.
So we should know a little bit about this.
Yeah.
We should be able to compare ourselves.
Yes, we should.
Right? Living in the US suburbs and the UK suburbs, where do you prefer?
I loved the American cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, we did live in some nice suburbs there. Yeah. The only thing that you can think of that comes in the suburbs in the UK, or in Europe, I should say, because we lived in Europe as well.
Yeah.
Lived in Holland, which counts as mainland Europe.
Yeah.
Is you still had a lot of stuff you could walk to in the suburbs. There was still a lot of stuff you could access very easily.
Or go on your bike. I used to go on my bike.
Well, I used to walk to a lot of places in Holland. And we
live
live in the suburbs.
around your bike.
And we live in the suburbs now, and you can still walk to a lot of places.
Yeah.
Whereas when we lived in the suburbs in the USA, it was kind of a struggle to walk. There weren't many pathways.
No, there wasn't.
To walk on sidewalks.
You could walk to Wawa, but that was about it. And Dunkin'
long,
Donuts.
far though.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it. See if it is about that.
Yeah.
American versus European suburbs and why US suburbs suck.
This is a typical American suburban street.
See,
It's
no
wide,
pathway.
the houses are very far apart and look mostly the same. There is barely anything on the well-manicured lawns, post boxes...
Yeah, that street's got let's say it has 15 houses on the street. In England, that's got 65.
Oh, they'd be doubled.
Yeah.
That'd be the front and back of someone's house.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be...
It's a lot
bushes
bigger.
and the occasional fire hydrant.
There's just so much space. The road's wider.
Now compare
golf
this to a
ball
suburb in
mailbox.
Leipzig, Germany. What differences do you notice?
pathway.
Yeah. Paths. Trees, cars.
First off,
No
there is
mossy
stuff
gardens.
around you. The streetscape is very diverse and mentally engaging. In comparison, the American suburb looks like a desolate urban wasteland. Also in the European suburb, the street is narrow, there is a 30 km/h speed limit, and the buildings are close together. Do notice the tram tracks. In this suburb, you can live car-free. If you want to go to the center, you can either take the tram or ride your bike for 20 minutes on dedicated bike lanes. Or take the S-Bahn because there's also a train station. In the American suburb, you have no option but to drive. Head out onto the busiest road, a horrifying mix of street and road, onto the jammed highway, and after an hour you'll be in the center, searching for a parking spot. How about going to a restaurant? In the European suburb, there are dozens of different...
There is a sort of like I get in the USA, when you show pictures like that, you could be anywhere in the USA.
Yeah.
It's all very cut and paste, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
very similar to where town to town, especially in the suburbs. I guess when you go into the bigger cities like your Chicago's, your Boston's, New York's, LA's, places like that, it does differ a little bit. Where you've got the more historical buildings because they're older and the bigger than all the big cities. It's the same when you go around here. One of the reasons why a lot of the houses are very small over here and close together is they're built for certain communities. So in Manchester, for example, it was built for the cotton trade, the Industrial Revolution, built for industry where you needed loads of people living in such a small little confined space. And now they're there, they're not going to knock them down and start building one house every 50 yards, so every 500 yards.
Yeah.
Whereas they've got that in the suburbs there. Our suburbs are nothing like that.
No.
Our suburbs over here, because we're in such a
And
small...
the countries are
in
a
Europe
lot
are still
older and everything as
correct.
well.
That's what I was going to say. It's very historical, but when you come into Europe, you look at countries like Germany, Poland, France, Holland, places like that. Very historical, but also went through a lot in the day where it's very some day back, a few hundred years.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 800, 1100 years, 1200 years,
1300.
so maybe even longer. Yeah, but that's probably the reason why.
Unique local restaurants reachable on foot, by bike, or public transit. In the American suburb, you're an hour walk away from a chain restaurant next to a busiest road. If you want to eat, you gotta get in your car.
It's a 55-minute walk.
Some places, yeah.
What if you have children? In this European suburb, there are 3 schools close by. Kids can walk or bike there on their own and learn to be independent early on. In the American suburb, a child could get to school after 35 minutes of walking, mostly along a busy arterial road, also having to cross a 6-lane road. And somehow, there's no crosswalk, so kids have to be driven to school every day by mommy and daddy.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed when we moved to Holland was I was taking the boys to school on our bikes, and there was kids that were about 5 years old going to school on their own on the bike. And I was like, that's so dangerous. They could get run over. You'd never know. But they're brought up from such a young age to be so independent. That
I don't think that's that weird.
5-year-old kid.
Can you imagine Arlo going to school on his own on his bike?
If it's like down the road, I don't see the problem.
It's not down. It's not just down the road. It's down the road across.
Crossing.
You are crossing
taught
small
from an early
streets.
age to stop at the road and look left and right and cross, and you know what you're doing. If we sent Arlo out, even just down to Burton Road to the co-op, he'd never come back.
Maybe that's why Arlo's still a big baby.
But what you've got as well, though, if you notice on this one, a lot of the cars there, you just take the cars that are in sight there,
They're all
and you've got big cars.
Yeah.
So the visibility if someone's very small on the
Yeah.
side is different as well, especially when there's no sidewalks.
Yeah, exactly.
The same goes for sports. Over here, kids can take a 10-minute walk to the nearest sports field or a 3-minute bike ride on calm, safe streets on their own. In the US...
I don't really understand the comparison here, because he's just got one random house and he's saying the average of the walk is that. It could be the house up there and it's a 10-minute walk. It could be the house over there and it's a 20-minute walk.
in
average,
general, yeah.
in general, the average, wherever you are there, they might be, you walk in there, 30, I guess this is the US version, is it?
Yeah.
But wherever you work, wherever you are, you're going to be a certain walk in unless you're living right next to the park.
Yeah. Where we lived in New Jersey, in the last house we lived in, we could walk probably 10, 15 minutes and we'd be at Wawa, Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, it was like a little strip mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was no restaurants there.
No.
It
But
was
if
just
you
like
walked another
convenience.
10, 15 minutes, you were in
then
Brick
you're in
Township.
then you're in half an hour territory.
It's a 40-minute march through a maze of streets, partially along a major transit artery. Gotta get in the SUV and let mommy drive you to practice. This is where the term soccer mom originates from, by the way. People lament today's children for being overly dependent on their parents. But in such neighborhoods, children don't have a choice but to be dependent. Otherwise, they cannot go anywhere. They are stuck at home. In contrast, in European suburbs, kids can be let out safely to move around on their own, to go to places they want to, without the need for the mommy and daddy taxi service. Do note that yellow residential building on the left. That is a mid-rise. European suburbs tend to be a mixture of those and single or multi-family homes, like on this street. Zoning in US suburbs only allows for single-family homes, and they are usually placed very far apart, leading to low density and long distances. This makes public transportation non-viable. Over here in Europe, hundreds of people live within walking distance of this tram stop. In the US, if you put a tram stop here, you'd have a few dozen people living within walking distance. Meaning, even if you built public transit here, almost nobody would take it, because no matter how you build it, people would be too far away from it. If you're half an hour away on foot from the nearest tram stop, you'll take your car instead. And people do. So giant highways have to be built, rammed right into the city, usually demolishing non-white neighborhoods in the process. The end result was mass motorization all across America, constant traffic jams, noise and pollution, but not for the suburbanites. It was the urban dwellers, particularly those who were poor, who had to live near high traffic areas in cheap, low-quality housing. The suburbs also became a growth Ponzi scheme, where income from the suburbs couldn't cover future infrastructure overhauls, so the city had to expand and sell new properties constantly to get enough money to maintain what they already have. Not Just Bikes did a great video about this, link in the description. The suburbs and car-centric development were useful political tools in the 1950s to enforce a Christian conservative, white nationalist hierarchy within American society, where white men are on top, women are at home, fully dependent on their husbands, and where all resources are channeled towards the white middle and upper class in the form of billions in state subsidies, and the rest of society, poor people, non-whites, were left to fend for themselves in decaying urban centers sucked dry financially by the parasitic suburbs around them. Car-centric planning became a weapon of choice for conservatives in order to maintain the unequal status quo, and this phenomenon isn't unique to America. In Europe, as our cities transition away from cars, the opponents of this change are almost always conservatives. While the incumbent Paris mayor campaigned on eliminating 50,000 parking spaces, her conservative opponent, who looks frankly diabolical even by French standards, wanted to halt decongestion measures. In Prague, a city overrun by cars, conservatives keep screaming about the cyclo-fascists ruining the city after a shadow is painted somewhere. Meanwhile, conservative district mayors are busy turning sidewalks into parking lots. In Madrid, the conservative city leadership cancelled the ultra-low emission zones, leading to local protests to bring them back. In Budapest, we have Orbán's far-right conservatives screaming about how there is a witch hunt against drivers by the new centre-left mayor, and complaining how in inner-city Budapest it's almost faster to walk now than to drive. Even in Germany, Bavarian conservatives are dumping money into highways while letting the rail network fall into disrepair. As a rule of thumb, in every city with decongestion measures, you'll also find conservatives screaming about the war on cars, the symbol of hierarchy in transportation, where the affluent suburban minority gets to occupy 80% of public space inside cities, compared to the more egalitarian space use of public transit and bicycles. God forbid you have to get out of your giant SUV of death and get on a tram with the peasants. Of course, upholding the conservative hierarchy isn't why suburbs are built today in the US. It's mostly just a necessary continuation of the Ponzi scheme that began with the first suburbs. Also, it's due to faulty zoning codes not allowing for mid-rise developments that would actually make more money for the city, increase density, and
I don't think it has anything to do with Suburbs, this video, does it?
No.
It's an anti-motoring campaign, isn't it?
Lots of everyone to walk or ride the bike.
make public transit viable. In Europe, our suburbs are mixed, with both mid-rises, single and multi-family homes. They're an organic part of the city and could
What he's not mentioned is the size of the houses that are, if you've got a family of 3 or a family of 4, and you're living in a 2-bed flat in Prague or in Hungary or where Budapest or wherever he was talking, you go to a suburb in New Jersey, which I can use, or Houston, Texas, where we lived, and you can buy a dwelling for like a fraction of the price you're paying for these suburbs, and you get a lot more square footage. He's not mentioned that once. All he's mentioned about is how easy it's to travel without using your car.
And also, the children from the neighbour can all play outside. It's very safe.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, you can play. You can play. You can do all kinds of stuff when you're there. You can network within your own little area, sort of.
Yeah.
You don't have to jump in your car.
Yeah,
to
one
go
of our
anywhere.
neighbours had a basketball hoop, and all the kids played with that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but you don't have to travel. This is just an anti-car. What's it?
Yeah.
contribute fairly to the local budget. There is also subsidized, affordable public transit. All in all, it's more egalitarian. And if the US situation sounds depressing in contrast, as an American, there are things you can do to potentially help change things. If there is a local transit riders union, go join it. Look if there are any initiatives on the ballot for traffic calming, bike lanes, etc. Show up to your local town hall meetings and advocate for zoning reform, ending parking minimums, and so on. If you're persistent enough, your ideas will be heard, and you can help push America back towards sensible, fair, more egalitarian urban planning, one neighborhood at a time. That's what I would do if I were you. Thank you for watching.
I know what I prefer. I loved having a lovely big house with a swimming pool, and the kids could come over and play, and I didn't mind driving.
So I like driving, so I'm not really that bothered about having nothing.
I'm driving as well.
The only disadvantage I found when we were in the States was that if we wanted to go for a night out, you had to drive. There was no taxis, so somebody couldn't drink, or you can only have a couple of drinks.
That's shit.
Whereas now, when we go out, we never drive. We just either walk or get a taxi.
Yeah,
you don't really have that
even
option.
when we've been out
there.
in the USA, when we've been there visiting, the last few times, Uber's big over there now. Like wasn't a thing when we were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't get a bloody taxi from Kentucky to Alabama or whatever it was.
I can also flip it around there, American versus European suburbs, and you're talking there about the housing and the planning and all that kind of stuff. You look at every one of them houses in the USA had a garden.
Yeah.
A big garden where you can grow plants, you can grow trees, you can put all kinds of stuff that's going to help the environment. The ones in Europe doesn't have any gardens.
No.
You're very small, and sometimes it's a yard,
Yeah.
which is a concrete. I mean, I know the USA refer to their garden as a yard. We're talking yards here, which is just like a concrete, like a walled in little sort of like terrace, if you want. And a lot of European suburbs have that.
I think it depends on what you want. Some people want to live in the city and work in the city and walk everywhere. Some people want to have the countryside. It just depends.
Yeah, but
It's not necessarily the countryside, though, is it?
That was just more about walking and cutting down on the carbon footprint of driving around different ways, because he refers to them as big SUVs and stuff like that. That's what that was about. That was more American than European suburbs from a car perspective.
Yeah, and you
as
put that
opposed to a
woman
living
next to that
perspective.
SUV, and I've never seen anybody that small against
I've never
an
seen an SUV like that. Yeah. But anyway, there you have it. My take is on it. I still like I like both suburbs, European and American.
Yeah.
I'll do like walk into convenience stores and walk into bars.
Yeah.
That's one of my favourite things to do. Do I like driving to a bar? No, because then I want to drink. If I'm going to a bar, I want something to drink.
Yeah.
Alcoholic, not going to a bar just to drink pineapple juice or orange juice. That's not me.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But at the same time, taking the kids to football and stuff like that. Do you want your kids to watch football or ice hockey when he's got all the equipment he's carrying as well?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
You don't have to walk.
No, I'm saying.
You can also drive if it's nearby.
That's what I'm saying. They're saying, though, that's what he's getting at in here. In the European suburbs, you don't have to drive. You can walk. But I'm saying if you've got a small kid who's playing ice hockey, who's going there and he's got all his equipment with him, or he's going playing, you want to go with him, you want to take your siblings, you're all going to walk down when it's pissing with rain.
Yeah, but you're just making a scenario where it's working for you now, isn't it? You know what I mean?
That's the way to look at it. It's what suits you.
Yeah.
It's not what suits everybody else all the time, is it? It's what suits you.
You want
what
to
your
support
needs
your
are.
child as well.
Oh, what, and you're going to be having a kid with carrying loads of hockey equipment, isn't he?
I had that, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, hope you guys let us know in the comments what you guys think.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.